Anyway, George Patton has taken over. He comes from the Minnesota Vikings, and he is the new general manager in Denver. And he had some interesting things to say about the incumbent quarterback, Drew Lock. Chances are you didn't hear this. Why would you, unless you're a diehard Bronco fan? But it's interesting to dissect. So let me give you the thumbnail version of what was said. Now, the new GM in Denver, Patton, did not give a full vote of confidence to Drew Lock, but he claimed that he's been a big fan since Lock was coming out of the draft. And the new Big Cheese said that Lock is talented, has a big arm, is athletic, a playmaker, and can develop. Of course, anyone can develop as long as you're alive. Then he confirmed the obvious, that Denver does want a franchise quarterback. That's the number one stated goal by the new GM of the Broncos. You didn't have to be the GM of the Broncos to know that. All you have had to have done is watch Bronco football since old man Manning walked away, and they've had a hodgepodge of quarterbacks, and one's been worse than the other. And he said the Broncos are looking. So, again, he sent mixed messages here because he talked upselling Drew Lock, and then out of the other side of his mouth, he talked about the fact that the goal is to look for a franchise quarterback. So the question, are you bearish or bullish on the NFL future of Drew Lock? Is he salvageable for the Denver Broncos? So I am so bearish, I'm hibernating. It's a bear jamboree is what it is. I'm in hibernation. So I've got grand larceny, used car salesman, and reality show. And we will lock all of these things together now. Number one. Drew Lock has not shown enough to give you, me, or the guy in the back behind the tree reason to believe that he is going to have this magical epiphany. And ta-da! He's a great quarterback. Now, I have no skin in the game. I am an impartial arbitrator. I'm Switzerland when it comes to the Broncos. The jury is in, and Drew Lock is not the answer. He will not ascend to be a franchise quarterback. I've seen no evidence of that, considering the amount of hype last offseason coming out of the Rocky Mountains. Drew Lock played some games on a bad Bronco team at the end of the year and showed some signs of life. And then he showed up this year, played 13 games, and should be brought up on grand larceny charges for the performance. You talk about bait and switch. Advertises a really big deal, an up-and-comer. Played like a total fraud. Not only the eyeball test, but also the stats back that up. The eyes might tell you one thing, the stats might tell you something else, but everything's on the same page. Self-inflicted mistakes. Drew Lock was tied for the NFL lead with 15 interceptions, and he was tacked on 8 fumbles. So he had 15 and 8. Now, he didn't lose all the fumbles, but every time you fumble, it's a 50-50 proposition. So 23 times he gave the football away, at least in theory gave the football away, and he only contributed 16 touchdown passes. The more telling stat is yards per attempt. This is the stat that tells you whether you're average, a little bit above average, or below average. And if you go by that metric, Drew Lock is below average. Average is 7 yards per pass attempt. You complete passes for 7 yards per attempt. That's average. Drew Lock is at 6.6. He's about a half a yard below that. And turnovers in general are enemies of victory. And so the Broncos defensively showed some signs of life despite Von Miller being out with the injury, and Drew Lock undermined the Broncos' chances of being a elite defensive team and being a competitive team because he kept turning the ball over, and he had multiple turnover games in several occasions. Now, the second thing here, deep down, the people who run the Bronco front office know completely that Drew Lock is not going to be a Bronco much longer, that he is part of the problem, not the solution, unless you are in the complete denial of reality. And based on the recent Bronco clubs that have been out on the field, it's always an option. Now, there's a new guy there, this guy, George Patton. I don't know much about him, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But my first impression is that this guy Patton sounds like a sleazy used car salesman. Right? Now, that goes with the territory, right? Goes with the real estate. And as a sports executive, that's how you have to act. You talk out of both sides of your mouth, politician, sports executive. The shell game of the offseason. You're always hiding the details. Like when you buy a car, they always hide certain details. There's all that hidden language. You ever bought a car and you have to fill out that pile of paper, and they know that at some point you're just going to stop reading everything. Most people don't read everything anyway. Just kind of skim through it. And executives also, when they give these comments, they're like, well, I'm gonna leave some details out, and people won't pay attention. They won't ask questions. You never want to reveal your hand. That's also a staple of being a sports executive. Being paranoid, also not bad. Welcome to an NFL executive in a nutshell. If you were to ask me, hey, what qualifications does one have to be an executive? Those are the qualifications. I just gave you the qualifications there, right? You got a little paranoid, you got to hide information, play the shell game, talk out of both sides of your mouth. Those are all the ingredients that one needs to have. All right, final point. So Drew Lock may, that's a weasel word, may have the raw ingredients, I haven't seen them, to be good. However, what I have seen, he is lacking the most crucial part of the arithmetic, the equation. Execution. It is the bedrock of quarterback play. There's only two things I need from my quarterback. You give me these two things, I can win if I'm coaching the team. And I should be coaching your team. You know what those two things are? I'll tell you. Accuracy and good decision-making. I don't need anything else. Everything else is just added on top. It's an extra scoop of ice cream. Drew Lock, in terms of accuracy, 0. In terms of decision-making, 0. And his completion percentage is near the bottom of the NFL, if not at the very bottom. And so, listen, if you have quick feet, that's great. If you're fast and you can run like a gazelle, wonderful. If you got a strong arm, you can throw the football like a bazooka. Congratulations. But none of that matters if you can't accurately throw the ball and make good decisions. All of that, people get drafted on strong arm, fast, quick feet. Strong arm, fast, quick feet gets you drafted. And you can just be accurate, make good decisions, and be drafted later on. Because that is not where the value is. So, in some respects, this is a quagmire for Denver. But when you take a step back, it's really not. It's really not. The writing's on the wall here. Drew Lock has shown enough to show that he's lacking the skill set that the Broncos need. And one thing I will say for Lock, this guy loves to do the jitterbug on the sidelines. And so he has a better shot. If you were to give me odds, or if I were to give you odds, I would tell you to bet on his future not being as a Pro Bowl or All-Pro quarterback. He'll never be an All-Pro, but as a reality show contestant, So You Think You Can Dance, or one of those other dancing shows. I don't know if you know if that's still on the air. It used to be. And see, the Broncos need to get creative here. So I would like to spin the wheel of quarterbacks for the Denver Broncos. We don't usually spin the wheel this early. Playoffs are still going on, but I'm going to spin the wheel of quarterbacks. The wheel goes round and round and round and round and round and round and round, and it stops. Whoa! Matty Ice! Matty Ice! Right there, I see Matt. It's right between Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford. Right? Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford. Now, this makes sense. The wheel of quarterbacks is never wrong. The Broncos need a veteran, somewhat reliable quarterback who's not going to lead the world in interceptions. And you can get Matthew Stafford. You can get Matt Ryan out of Atlanta. You can get either one of those guys. Now, they're not the long-term solution, but the Broncos have tried enough short-term solutions they thought were going to be long-term solutions, and it's like playing with firecrackers, and it blows up in your hand. Now, the other options are players like Carson Wentz, but that contract is the immovable object, makes him the immovable object in Philadelphia, and Sam Darnold, or my guy, Jared Goff. But if you had to take a veteran quarterback, and you figure Jimmy Garoppolo's not on that list because he gets hurt a lot, so Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford. The other options, Cameron Newton, who had 8 touchdowns for the Patriots. 8. Walking in the footsteps of Tom Brady. So the move here is to get that bridge quarterback. If you're planning, maybe the Broncos never want to contend again. Maybe they just want to curse Koopaloop and never contend again and just be stuck in purgatory here for some new owner to take over eventually. But you get that bridge quarterback, that temp quarterback. Uncle Vic, as a gambler, Uncle Vic's put teams that are right there defensively. I've certainly seen that the last couple of years. Been pretty good against the number. But the quarterback, the most important position on the field, yikes.